$44.8 billion for mayonnaise. I read the Unilever footnotes twice because I thought I was hallucinating.
Don't disrespect the flavor behemoth. They just pushed Q1 M&A volume to $1.3 trillion. The mega deal is back.
It is not back, Nate. It just got wildly expensive. Though Apollo buying a $10 billion private jet business from KKR is a hilarious game of billionaire hot potato.
Private equity passing the parcel. Let's see how McCormick is actually paying for all this mayo. The rundown. 319%. That's how much mega deal volume is up year over year. We're officially back in the era of the billion-dollar flex.
I saw the same analyst note. Global first quarter volumes hit $1.3 trillion. But before you dust off your old banker fleece, look at who's actually buying.
Everyone with a functioning credit facility.
Try private equity firms buying from other private equity firms. Look at Apollo right now. They're reportedly circling KKR's Atlantic Aviation for $10 billion.
I love this deal. It's the ultimate country club transaction. KKR gets to mark up their fund, Apollo gets a premier private jet servicing business, and the bankers collect fees on both sides.
It's literally just moving assets from the left pocket to the right pocket while skimming a couple $100 million off the top. I need to see the actual organic growth numbers before I call this a market recovery.
You're so cynical. You can't deny the financing conditions have fundamentally improved. That's why Carlyle is taking a majority stake in MAI Capital Management at a $2.8 billion valuation. The debt markets are wide open again.
I'll concede the debt markets are thawing, but let's talk about healthcare because that's where the structure gets interesting. Biogen is buying Apellis Pharmaceuticals for $5.6 billion.
$41 a share in cash, clean and simple.
Plus a contingent value, right?
The CVR, the corporate equivalent of saying I'll pay you back next Tuesday if it doesn't rain.
Exactly. They bury the actual probability of that payout in the footnotes. Eli Lilly is doing the same kind of aggressive pricing with Centessa, floating up to $47 a share depending on milestones.
The pharma guys have to pay up. Patent cliffs are looming. Speaking of desperate moves, the whispers I'm hearing suggest private equity is gearing up to take battered public tech and healthcare companies private. We might actually see hostile PE takeovers.
Hostile PE deals? Oh, come on. They hate getting their hands dirty in a public proxy fight. I'll believe that when I see the SEC filings.
Just wait. But if you want a real mega deal, forget the $10 billion PE swaps. We need to talk about the $44.8 billion flavor behemoth that just dropped.
McCormick and Unilever's food business.
$29.1 billion in equity, $15.7 billion in cash, and enough spices to cover the globe. Let's get into the math on this one. The big one. $44.8 billion for mayonnaise and garlic powder. I love this industry.
Hey, show some respect to the paprika. But seriously, when you look at the Q1 data, this McCormick and Unilever Foods tie-up is the absolute poster child for the quarter. We just hit $1.3 trillion in global M&A volume.
Which is nuts. That's up almost 20% from last year. And it's entirely driven by these massive swing-for-the-fences mega deals.
Transactions over $1 billion are up 319%. 319. I had to read the report twice to make sure I didn't misplace a decimal.
It's the return of boardroom swagger. Board confidence is back. Regulatory fears seem to have paused, financing conditions thawed out, and suddenly CEOs are looking around saying, hey, why don't we just buy our biggest rival? Which brings us back to the spice aisle. McCormick is handing Unilever $29.1 billion in equity and $15.7 billion in pure cash.
That cash portion is exactly what gives me heartburn. Where are they getting $15.7 billion? They're going to lever up to the eyeballs for this. And for what? Unilever has been trying to figure out what to do with that foods division for years because growth was completely stagnant.
Sure, but look at the empire they're building. $20 billion in projected revenue. They'll literally control the flavor profile of half the global food supply. It's a brilliant defensive moat. You can't put a price on owning every condiment in a consumer's fridge.
I absolutely can put a price on it, Nate. And $44.8 billion is too high. McCormick is paying a massive premium for a melting ice cube just to get bigger. I need to see the actual math on how this generates a return.
I disagree. I think you're underestimating the distribution synergies. McCormick gets to push its high margin spices through Unilever's massive global supply chain. If I'm pitching this in a boardroom, I'm calling it the ultimate margin expansion play.
Spoken like a true former banker trying to justify his fee. The bankers on this deal are probably buying private islands right now.
Oh, the advisory fees on a $44 billion transaction with $15 billion in cash? Someone is definitely upgrading their yacht. But I still say the industrial logic holds up.
We'll see what the rating agencies have to say about that debt load next week. I'm not buying the synergy narrative until I see the pro forma operating margins in their next filing.
You never buy the synergy narrative.
Because it usually ends up being an accounting fiction. But speaking of upgrading yachts and private islands, we should probably talk about private equity titans trading massive toys among themselves.
Oh man, yes, Apollo dropping $10 billion for KKR's Atlantic Aviation. Voices.
So the analyst desks are officially taking a victory lap today. They're pointing to that $1.3 trillion first quarter figure and claiming board confidence is completely back.
Well, mega deals over $1 billion are up 319% year over year. 319. That's an absurd jump. It honestly feels like 2021 again.
I'm just not buying the confidence narrative. The commentators say it's all about regulatory optimism, but look at the actual transactions driving that volume.
You mean the $44.8 billion spice rack?
Exactly. McCormick and Unilever's food business. It's a massive number that inflates the Q1 totals, but Unilever is practically desperate to spin that off. They're taking $15.7 billion in cash just to walk away. That isn't board confidence. That's portfolio pruning.
I completely disagree. You don't sign a $45 billion deal if the board is shaking in their boots about the macro environment. McCormick sees $20 billion in projected revenue here. They're buying the entire global flavor market in one swing. That takes absolute conviction.
Conviction or a lack of organic growth? I read the Unilever filings from last quarter. Those margins were totally stagnant. McCormick is just buying scale because they can't invent a new way to sell garlic powder.
Okay, harsh, but fair. What about Apollo then? They're reportedly circling KKR's Atlantic Aviation for $10 billion. Private equity titans just trading private jet businesses with each other. You can't tell me financing conditions haven't drastically improved.
Sure, the debt is cheaper, but trading assets between mega funds is basically a closed loop. It's just musical chairs for billionaires.
Highly lucrative musical chairs. And the Whisper Network says this is just the start. PE firms are supposedly hunting for public tech targets now. Hostile takeovers might actually be back on the menu.
I'll believe a hostile tech buyout when I see the actual proxy filings. But speaking of Apollo, we really should look at what happens tomorrow if a rival bidder tries to crash their $10 billion aviation party. Spill the tea.
So Apollo is reportedly circling Atlantic Aviation. $10 billion. KKR is just casually tossing the keys to the private jet empire over to Apollo.
Pass the parcel, billionaire edition.
Exactly, but you have to respect it. $10 billion for a fixed base operator, it proves private equity titans are perfectly happy just trading massive assets among themselves. The sponsor-to-sponsor deal is back in a big way.
I do not respect it, Nate. I look at the numbers. Mega deals over $1 billion are up 319% year over year. Global transaction values just hit $1.3 trillion for the first quarter. This isn't some strategic masterclass. This is just improved financing conditions and sponsors desperate to deploy dry powder.
Oh, come on. It is a little bit of a masterclass. They are playing Monopoly with actual airports, and the whispers I am hearing on the street, this is just the warm-up. Private equity is looking really hard at taking public companies private. Hostile takeovers in tech and healthcare are absolutely coming this year.
I will believe the hostile tech takeovers when I see the actual term. Sheets. Tech boards are way too entrenched right now. And the valuations? Nobody wants to sell at a huge discount to their 2021 highs. They would rather just bleed cash.
Spoken like a true former tech reporter, But if Apollo officially drops 10 billion on Atlantic Aviation tomorrow, you owe me a coffee.
Fine. A large cold brew. But only if no rival bidders emerge at the 11th hour. Which, knowing how these PE firms operate, someone might just throw in an extra 50 million just to be petty.
Petty PE is honestly my favorite genre of finance.
It makes for great footnotes. I will give you that. We will keep an eye on that Apollo filing tomorrow, along with Eli Lilly's pending move for Centessa. But speaking of massive numbers, we need to talk about the spice rack.
Oh yes, $44.8 billion of pure flavor. Tomorrow's radar. So tomorrow I'm refreshing my terminal for the Apollo and Atlantic Aviation final numbers. $10 billion to buy a private jet business from KKR.
Just private equity titans trading massive assets back and forth like vintage baseball cards.
Hey, when financing conditions improve, you trade the cards. Mega deals over $1 billion are up 319% this quarter. That's why we're hitting 1.3 trillion for Q1.
I'm actually skeptical Apollo walks away with this uncontested. 10 billion is a big number, but I wouldn't be shocked to see a rival bidder emerge at the 11th hour.
Oh, come on. Who else has that kind of dry powder ready by tomorrow morning? It's Apollo's to lose.
We'll see. I'll be reading the Eli Lilly and Centessa regulatory filings while you wait for your jet drama.
I like planes, Maya. They look great on a pitch deck.
Spoken like a true former banker. We'll catch you all tomorrow.